Hey guys, Phil here at Woods Tree Farm. If this is your first time checking out our channel, welcome, glad you're here. We are a 43-acre Christmas tree farm in Central Virginia, just in our second year. Actually, we just finished our second year, going into our third year of operation here. And our channel is all about us building this business from the ground up. And we didn't have any agriculture experience prior to this, so it's been an adventure and we've learned a lot as we've gone along here. I did a previous video where I mentioned one of the things that no one really told us about before we jumped into this is how much equipment maintenance and repair we would have to do. And as we have accumulated more and more equipment over the last couple years, that has become very, very apparent. So today I am working on this Honda Rancher ATV. This is something that we bought over the summer. It's a 20-year-old ATV, so no surprise, it needs some work occasionally. And when we got it, it needed some work right away. And since then, we had an issue with the carburetor. It was spilling some fuel out of the overflow, so I took it all apart. I did the carburetor rebuild. I bought the rebuild kit for it. I didn't do a video of that. And then it was still overflowing with fuel. There's an overflow at the bottom of the carburetor and fuel was flowing out, and usually that's because it needs the new needle valve or the float valve that's inside the carburetor bowl. Well, come to find out, this carburetor that's on there, while I think it is the proper carburetor for the ATV, I don't think the float that's in it is the proper float. So anyway, I'm tired of dealing with it. I just bought an entirely new carburetor, and we're going to go ahead and install that today, and hopefully that solves our problem. So follow along today. Let's have a little fun. Here we go. So here is my fancy fuel cutoff valve, because apparently the valve at the tank isn't working because this thing has lost all its fuel a couple times now. So when I'm not using it, I go ahead and crimp the fuel line with a pair of vice grips there. And as soon as I take that off, we'll probably see here within short order that the overflow, which right now I have out the side right there, usually it goes down underneath, but I wanted to keep an eye on it, so I pulled it over here out the side. So anyway, that is our carburetor. We are going to take that out, and I've done this a few times now, so I've gotten pretty good at it. So the airbox is going to come out, and that's a pretty straightforward process. And then once that's out, we'll have full access to this. There's two little hose clamps on the airbox that we can loosen up. Get this vacuum line out of the way. Loosen this one up over here. The airbox, we just loosen one hose clamp there, loosen the other hose clamp over here between the carburetor and the airbox, and then down here right next to the engine there is this little breather tube that comes off. It has a little spring clip on it, so remove the spring clip and then pull it off of this little barbed fitting here. If you need to, just wedge a little screwdriver in there and push it off. That's what I do. So with all those things loose, the airbox should come right out. And there's one other thing. If you got one of these, your airbox probably has another connection down here to the frame down below. Mine's missing, so you'll have to disconnect that. If you have one, mine just hangs in there without it, so I can just pull this straight out. Okay, we can now disconnect the fuel line, which has this little hose clamp right here. Funny, I couldn't find another flathead screwdriver, so I'm just using this for my chainsaw. Okay, with that loose, we should be able to lift the fuel line off. There we go. And then there are two other things we need to loosen up. Off the bottom of the carburetor, there's a wire for the, I think it's some kind of like heater thing. So you got to find that wire and then follow it up, and it's behind this panel here. So we'll have to remove this panel to loosen that wire assembly. So you just take your couple little trim buttons off, and you probably want to pick up some extra of these, because I don't know about you, but I break them all the time. But anyway, take that one off. There's one here that you can take off, one underneath that you can take off, and then you've got enough room to work in here. And this is the wiring harness that you need to pull apart. So right up in here, there's a little hose clamp that holds the carburetor to the engine right there. So we'll loosen that up, and then the carburetor will come off. Alright, so that heater wire is disconnected. Next we have this little vacuum line up here. I think that's what it is anyway. you can just move that hose clamp. You might be able to do it by hand. You might need some pliers, but it comes right off. The new carburetor, I believe, has this on it. I'll double check it after I remove it, but if not, I might have to steal this from here, put it back here, and connect these vacuum lines there. Two other things to do. Once we remove this, we'll be able to get access to the choke cable and the throttle cable. So actually what I'm going to do the throttle cable first, because it'll give me more room to play here. So I just need a Phillips screwdriver for that side, and then that'll come out by hand. And you can see the throttle here. There's that cable, and you're going to need to reuse this, so be sure not to damage it. But you push that forward, this comes out, and then you just need to unthread it right here. Okay, with that out of the way, now we might be able to get to that choke cable a little bit easier. Oh yeah. Okay. And we get that off. Alright, here's my new carburetor. This is a genuine Honda carburetor. You can get some really cheap carburetors on like Amazon for like 35, 40 bucks. The reviews on those were mixed, and frankly I'm tired of screwing around with this thing. So I just went ahead and ordered the genuine one. I actually got it off eBay, so it was considerably less expensive than it is from a Honda dealer. But anyway, about 150 bucks or so. Hopefully this gets us in good running order for a long time, and we don't have to play with this anymore. So I'm gonna double check and make sure I have everything that I need here. I've got a couple things that I've got questions about here as I unwrap this. Alright, so there's my overflow, don't need to salvage that. There's my heater wire, don't need to salvage that. I've got a new cover for the throttle piece here, so I don't need to salvage that. And then the only other thing I had a question about was that Y piece, which I don't think I need that either. So all I need to do then is just, I can actually take this off. Because I'm going to hook it up to the old line that was there, right? Right. So if you see this part here, this is the part that I need to remove, and I need to pay attention to how that works. So it's got a little spring inside, which the new one came with a spring. The spring needs to go over the cable, and then the cable needs to slide into this fitting. The fitting on the new one is plastic, and this one's brass. So that's why I said I'm not going to go ahead and reuse this one, just because it is different. So now I just need to figure out how to get this off. I just got a little spring clip, and then how do I get this off? So I've got some questions about this. How does this come off? Need to try to push that up, maybe? Aha! Actually worked out surprisingly well. Okay, so the old spring comes off. This old thing comes off. This old elbow piece comes off. And the new one has all new stuff. Oh, and a new spring clamp. So, take that old spring clamp off. And we've got all new stuff. Here we've got the elbow. And then there's the new spring that goes inside. And the new these things, which goes inside. And it looks like it just kind of pushes in there like that, and then the spring goes down on top. Oh, that was easy. Easier to get the new one on than the old one off. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do that first. That will go down inside. We'll carefully thread this on. It's plastic, so don't want to cross thread it. Down this way. Now we can do the throttle cable on the other side. Push that way up. Once that metal piece goes in there, you can guide it through that little slot and then move your carburetor up closer so that you can thread in the cable into the carburetor housing there. Put that cap back on. It's got this little lip on the bottom. It's got to go underneath that metal piece there. Once that's under, it'll line up there and you put your screw on. Okay, making progress. Now we can go ahead and push the carburetor onto the that little gasket that holds it to the front of the engine, and that will hold it in place. And then we can hook up this vacuum tube here. Okay, down underneath we had that wire that needs to be reconnected, and there's that cable. I'm just going to run it back in the same path it was before, and then we can hook up the fuel line. Tighten everything back to where it was. I can put this trim panel back now. Alright, it's all back together. Let's test it out. Well, I'm pleased with that. That's the best $150 I've spent on this four-wheeler so far. So that was a pretty good deal I got on eBay on that brand new carburetor, and I didn't have to adjust it at all. As soon as I fired it up, it ran perfect. The idle just happened to be right in the perfect spot, and I even let it run and sit and idle for a while. It didn't sputter once, never stalled, did great. So anyway, if you got any questions or comments about this video, leave those below in the comments section and I will answer it. And we are going to put this thing to use out on the farm. We'll continue to. We've been using it since the summertime, and it has served us pretty well, but hopefully now it's going to be good and reliable. It's going to run nice, and we'll be able to jump on it and put it to work whenever we need it. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Thanks for following along, and I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.